I will never forget the moment my life cracked open. It wasn't loud, it wasn't dramatic. It didn't happen in the middle of a storm or some big movie moment. No, it happened on an ordinary Tuesday afternoon in Houston, inside the apartment I shared with a man I thought was my future. I came home early that day. Bright sun, quiet hallway, keys jangling in my hand, never imagining that I was about to walk straight into the kind of truth that steals the breath out of your lungs. I opened the door calling out for him. No answer. I thought he was napping, or working, or somewhere innocent, but the sound I heard wasn't silence. It was laughter. Soft, female, familiar. I followed it down the hallway, every step heavier than the last, and when I pushed open the bedroom door, my soul left my body for a moment. My fiancé, the man I gave everything to, wasn't alone. He wasn't napping. He wasn't working. He was on top of my best friend, my closest friend, my sister and everything but blood. And they didn't even stop fast. They froze slow, guilty. Like they had been doing this for so long, they forgot to feel ashamed. If you've ever been lied to by someone you loved, you might feel this one already. Before I tell you the rest of it, do something for me. If stories like this touch something deep in you, hit that like button, subscribe, and drop a comment telling me where in the world you're watching from. It matters more than you think. My name is Janelle Carter. I was 27 years old when all of this happened. I was living in Houston, Texas, working as a full-time interior designer at one of the biggest design firms in the city. Back then, I thought I knew what my life would look like. A wedding, a home, a family, a best friend standing next to me in every part of it. But that day, that one horrible day, was the beginning of everything changing. Not just the end of my relationship, not just the end of a friendship, but the beginning of the moment I met a man who would alter the entire direction of my life. A man fine like God himself, powerful enough to silence a room, cold enough to command fear, yet warm enough to break every wall I swore I'd never let down again. But before him, I have to tell you how I fell apart. I always tell people that if you rewind my life a year back, you wouldn't see storm clouds. You wouldn't see heartbreak creeping in from the corners. You wouldn't see betrayal sharpening its teeth in the shadows. No, if you had met me then, you would have seen a girl who believed she had finally figured out life. Houston was warm, the sun was bright, my career was blooming, and everything in my heart felt settled. I would wake up in the cozy apartment I shared with Malik, my fiancé back then, and for a few seconds every morning, life felt perfect. He'd make coffee, I'd pack my design samples for the day, and we'd talk about our wedding like it was written in stone. Malik had this smile that made you melt a little, and back then, I would have sworn he'd never use it to hide anything. We'd sit on the couch with our legs tangled, imagining our future babies, arguing about whether their nursery should be minimalist or whimsical. I was an interior designer. I dreamed in color palettes. I saw love the same way, warm tones, soft textures, gentle lighting. And I thought Malik fit into that picture like he was drawn for it. He'd tell me every morning, someday soon, you won't have to lift a finger. I'm going to take care of you, Janelle. And I believed him. Not because I was naive, but because back then, I wanted to believe in something safe, something lasting, something I didn't have to second guess. I didn't know that sometimes the prettiest pictures are the ones hiding the deepest cracks. And then there was Tasha, my best friend since freshman year of high school, the girl who braided my hair before prom, the girl who cried with me when my mama passed, the girl who said we would walk down the aisle together, her as my maid of honor, me as hers one day. We were sisters in everything except blood. She was loud, bold, funny, the kind of woman who lit up a room and never apologized for taking space. I trusted her with everything. My fears, my dreams, my secrets. I used to think betrayal from a partner was the worst pain in the world. Until I learned that betrayal from a best friend cuts deeper because it sneaks in through doors you left open with love. But back then, I had no reason to doubt her. We'd go furniture shopping together. She'd help me pick outfits for client meetings, and she'd always say, "Girl, you hit the jackpot with Malik." I'd laugh and nod, not knowing she was saying it with a mouth full of secrets. Looking back, there were signs, moments where something didn't sit right. The way Malik would get quiet when her name came up. The way she'd always ask if he was home before stopping by. The way their jokes had a little too much electricity in them. But love makes you blind. Friendship makes you generous. And trusting people makes you vulnerable in ways you don't fully understand until the knife arrives. My career was the one stable thing in my life, my anchor. I worked at the Hartwell Group, one of Houston's biggest design and architectural firms. My days were filled with mood boards, fabric swatches, site visits, long client meetings, and late nights spent sketching until my fingers hurt. The office was a tall glass tower downtown, overlooking the city, like it was watching who was rising and who was falling. I loved that view. I loved the energy. I loved feeling like I was building something. Rooms that breathed, homes that healed, spaces that told stories. My boss, Miss Hartwell, always said I had the gift, the ability to step into a room and see the soul of it. I thought that maybe that was my superpower, turning chaos into beauty. It's funny how I could walk into a destroyed space and know exactly how to rebuild it, but couldn't see the destruction happening inside my own home. I was working on the biggest contract of my career back then, a luxury condo redesign for a wealthy oil investor. It was stressful, intense, demanding, but it kept me busy. And I needed busy, because busy meant I didn't have to think too hard about the tiny cracks forming in my personal life. Busy meant I didn't have to acknowledge that Malik was coming home later. Busy meant I didn't have to sit with the weird feeling in my chest every time Tasha canceled plans at the last minute. The ending of that chapter of my life, the moment everything shifted, came quietly like a whisper before a scream. It was a Thursday afternoon. I was at work designing the lighting plan for a modern penthouse. The office smelled like coffee and fresh paper, sunlight bouncing off the polished floors. Tasha texted me, "Girl, can I stop by tonight? I miss you." I smiled. I needed that. Malik texted an hour later, "Working late, don't wait up." Nothing unusual, nothing suspicious, just life being life. But when I got home that evening, something felt off. My apartment was too quiet. Malik's shoes weren't by the door. The air felt thick, heavy. I dropped my bag on the couch and walked down the hallway slowly, sensing something before seeing it. And then I heard it. A giggle, a whisper, a sound that didn't belong. I froze, my heart pounding so loud it echoed in my ears. I pushed the bedroom door open, and the world I had built over years shattered in a single breath. Malik, Tasha, my bed, my sheets, my life, all tangled into one ugly scene I will never forget. The betrayal didn't scream, it whispered, it breathed, it looked me in the face without flinching. And in that moment, I swear I felt something inside me die. But what happened after that? That wasn't the end. It was the beginning. Because the very next morning, broken, shaking, barely breathing, I walked into work, into that glass tower, into the place that would introduce me to a man who would change everything, a man I wasn't prepared for, a man who would become my new CEO, a man who would become the reason I finally learned that love doesn't always come to destroy you. Sometimes it comes to rebuild everything you thought you had lost. And that moment right there is where everything becomes complicated. Because the first time I saw him, I forgot my heartbreak long enough to be afraid of what my heart might next. Before everything fell apart, before my heart learned what it meant to break quietly, I used to wake up to a kind of morning that felt like heaven borrowed me for a little while. Back then, Malik would always wake up first. He'd stand in the kitchen of our small apartment, shirtless, humming the same R&B song every morning, while scrambling eggs like he was cooking for a family of 5 instead of just the 2 of us. The smell of butter and pepper would float through the hallway, nudging me awake. I'd lie there for a few seconds, staring at the ceiling, listening to him move around like the world wasn't secretly cracking under our feet. I didn't know that love could be both comfort and camouflage. I didn't know that a person could hold you gently while hiding storms behind their back. I'd walk into the kitchen in my oversized t-shirt, hair a mess, eyes half open, and Malik would turn around with that smile, the one that used to make me feel chosen. "Morning, baby girl," he'd say, leaning down to kiss my forehead. I'd melt every single time, because back then I thought love was supposed to feel like melting. I thought love was supposed to be this warm, soft thing that filled the cracks left behind by the hard parts of life. I didn't know that sometimes love is what digs the cracks deeper. On weekends, the three of us, me, Malik, and Tasha, felt like our own little tribe. Tasha would burst through the front door without knocking, shouting, "Y'all better not be naked," and then laugh as if she enjoyed the idea of catching us. Malik would playfully roll his eyes, and I'd shove her shoulder, pretending to be annoyed. Back then, she brought a kind of wildness into my life. She was always the one dragging me out of the house when I wanted to stay in bed and drown in Pinterest boards. "Janelle, you're too fine to be wasting Saturdays inside. Let's go outside and be somebody," she'd say, pulling me toward the door while Malik grinned behind us like we were his entertainment. Sometimes the three of us would go to brunch, bottomless mimosas, loud music, Tasha dancing in her seat, Malik leaning in close to whisper, "Your friends are crazy," and me laughing like my chest wasn't secretly tightening. Because sometimes, even when everything looks beautiful, your spirit knows something is off long before your mind accepts it. There were moments, tiny ones, when I'd catch Malik looking at Tasha for a split second too long, or when she'd compliment him in a tone that was a little too warm, or when he'd bring her favorite snacks home. Innocent things, small things, forgettable things. But when you replay them in hindsight, they start to sound like warnings you ignored. People always think betrayal starts big, with fireworks and obvious signs. But it doesn't. It starts small, with little tiny moments you pass over because you love someone too much to see what's right in front of you. One of those moments happened on a Saturday afternoon when the three of us decided to repaint the tiny guest room I'd been turning into a home office for my design work. The walls were supposed to be cream, but Malik picked a shade slightly warmer than the one I chose. Tasha agreed with him instantly, smiling too brightly. "Yeah, Janelle, this one is way better," she said, nudging him like they shared some inside joke. I laughed it off, but the joke didn't land the same inside me. Then there was this other moment. I remember it so vividly. I had stepped out of the room to grab my phone charger, and when I came back, they were standing very close, whispering. Not flirty, not obvious, but too close, too familiar. When they saw me, they stepped apart so fast it almost looked rehearsed. "What were y'all talking about?" I asked with a smile. "Nothing," they said at the same time. I shrugged and kept painting. I didn't know it then, but that nothing was the first time my intuition knocked. And like a fool, I didn't open the door. At work, life was a different kind of busy. My office on the 8th floor overlooked downtown Houston, with sunlight pouring in through the tall windows, making the room glow in the mornings. I loved it there. Loved the noise of keyboards, the smell of coffee, the hum of conversation, the creative mess on my desk, fabric swatches stacked like little rainbows, color charts fanned across the table, architectural sketches pinned to the board behind me. Designing was my language, my escape, the place where everything made sense. People rarely lied in design. Numbers were honest. Measurements never betrayed you, and walls stayed exactly where you placed them. Sometimes I wondered if that's why I drowned myself in work when things at home felt odd. My coworkers used to tease me. "Janelle, girl, do you ever leave this office?" I'd laugh and pack up my things, pretending I wasn't staying late because I didn't want to go home to the growing silence between Malik and me. I'd sit there sketching until my phone buzzed with his "on my way" text. Texts that started coming later and later. I didn't question it. I didn't question anything. And then one day, Miss Hartwell, my boss, called me into her glass-walled office. "Janelle," she said, "your work is exceptional. You have a vision, a gift. There's a big restructuring coming soon. I can't say much yet, but stay ready." I had no idea what she meant, but now I know she was preparing me for the moment my life would be flipped upside down twice. First, by Malik's betrayal, then by a man whose presence would change everything. One night, long before my world collapsed, something strange happened. A dream. Not a nightmare, just strange. In the dream, I was standing inside a large, empty office space. Huge windows, city lights glowing outside. The room felt cold, like air conditioning on full blast. And there, at the far end of the room, stood a tall silhouette. A man I didn't recognize. He had his back to me, hands in his pockets, suit immaculate. He didn't speak, didn't move. But the moment I stepped closer, the floor beneath me shifted, like the ground was warning me. I woke up confused, shaken, heart racing. I brushed it off as stress, Work deadlines, wedding pressure, life happening too fast. But that dream returned again and again. Each time, the same silhouette stood there waiting, and I woke with the same strange feeling in my chest, as if life was whispering, "You think you know where you're going, but you have no idea what's coming." And then came the moment that planted the biggest seed of all, the moment that didn't fully make sense until later. One afternoon, while Malik was in the shower, his phone lit up on the counter with a notification. "Can't wait to see you again." The message disappeared before I could see who sent it. My stomach tightened, my hands shook. But when I confronted him about the notification, he laughed. "Babe," he said, "it was from my cousin. She uses hearts for everything." I believed him, or rather I wanted to. And I pushed the unsettled feeling deep down into a place I thought I'd never have to revisit. If I had listened to those warnings earlier, the dream, the glances, the too long silences, maybe things would have gone differently. Maybe the fall wouldn't have been so devastating. Maybe I would have seen the betrayal coming before it swallowed me whole. But love makes you blind, and comfort makes you stubborn. I walked into that relationship with my whole heart, not realizing the ground beneath me was already cracking. I didn't know that fate was preparing to drag me through fire so it could rebuild me into someone new, someone stronger, someone ready for a kind of love I didn't even know existed yet. But that transformation didn't begin with healing. It began with a slow unraveling, a feeling that things weren't as perfect as they looked. And on one quiet Wednesday night, while Malek sat beside me on the couch scrolling through his phone and Tasha texted me nonstop about weekend plans, I felt something shift in my chest. A tightening, a warning, a whisper. I didn't know the words yet, but my spirit did. Something is coming. And the very next day, it came. People think heartbreak arrives with thunder, loud, violent, impossible to ignore. But the truth? Heartbreak enters like a whisper, soft, subtle, familiar. It starts with tiny changes in a person you love, changes so small you convince yourself it's just stress or work or life happening too fast. That's how it began with Malik. He didn't stop loving me all at once. No, he stopped slowly, like a dimmer switch being turned down one notch at a time. I remember one night in particular. I had been working late at the Hartwell Group, finalizing a lighting design for a new client. I drove home exhausted, wanting nothing more than to collapse onto the couch with my fiancé and watch some silly show we'd laugh at together. When I walked inside, Malik was sitting on the couch, phone in hand, smiling at something on his screen. A genuine smile, the kind he hadn't given me in weeks. When he saw me, he locked the phone so fast the movement stung. "Hey, babe," he said with a soft grin. But the smile didn't reach his eyes. The apartment felt different that evening. Too quiet, too still. I walked toward him asking how his day went, and his answer came out clipped. "Long," he said. "Let's not talk about it." He kissed my forehead and turned up the volume on the TV. I sat beside him, but the space between us felt colder than the air conditioning humming above our heads. Something inside me tightened, gentle at first, then sharper. I should have asked. I should have questioned more. But I just curled beside him and pretended not to feel the shift happening in the air. Tasha, my best friend, didn't help. Or maybe she did. Maybe her behavior was its own warning. She started pulling away at strange times, canceling brunch last minute, ignoring my calls, but posting selfies online 5 minutes later. When we did meet, she was different, restless, distracted, almost jumpy when Malik's name came up. One afternoon at a cafe, I told her I was feeling off, like something in my relationship wasn't adding up. I hoped she would laugh, touch my hand, and reassure me like she always did. Instead, she took a long sip of her iced coffee, eyes darting everywhere but mine. "Girl, don't overthink it," she said too quickly. "Malik loves you. You're just stressed from work." But her voice trembled slightly, and I caught the way her knee bounced under the table. I asked her directly, "Tasha, is something going on?" Her eyes snapped to mine, wide, almost fearful. "No, why would you even ask me that?" she said with forced laughter. She didn't meet my eyes after. She just looked down at her phone and changed the subject. I didn't know it yet, but that moment was the beginning of the unraveling, not because she lied, but because she couldn't lie smoothly. The truth was leaking out of her like water through a crack in a glass. And I sat there, holding the cup, pretending not to feel it dripping on my hand. Work became my safe place, even though I didn't realize I was hiding in it. The Hartwell Group was buzzing with rumors of a leadership change. People whispered in elevators, in break rooms, on lunch breaks about a mysterious acquisition. He's from New York. He's strict, cutthroat strict. He turned a failing company into an empire. He doesn't tolerate mistakes. I didn't care much at first. My life was already chaotic enough without adding a new boss to the mix. But the energy in the office shifted. Meetings became tighter, deadlines sharper. Miss Hartwell seemed nervous, something I'd never seen before. And one day she called me into her office, her expression unreadable behind her glasses. "Janelle," she said slowly, "there's change coming. Big change. I'm telling you because you're one of the best designers we have. Don't get lost in your personal life right now. Stay focused." Her words hit me harder than she intended. Don't get lost in your personal life. How did she know something was wrong? How did she see it before I admitted it to myself? I left her office with my heart thumping. That evening, while working on a mood board, a weird thing happened. A sticky note I had placed on my wall fell off on its own. Not a breeze. Not someone brushing past it. Just fell. And written on it was something I had scribbled months ago. Trust your first feeling. I stared at it for a long time. It felt like a whisper from a past version of me, one who wasn't drowning yet. The tension between Malik and me continued to grow in strange, quiet ways. He started putting his phone face down every time he set it on the table. His showers got longer. His excuses got thinner. "I'm tired, babe. I worked late. My phone died." Little lies disguised as normal life. One evening, while we were cooking dinner together, his phone buzzed on the counter. I looked over instinctively. He grabbed it so fast he dropped the knife he was holding. It clattered loudly on the tile floor. I froze. He froze. His eyes flicked to mine, wide, alert, almost defensive. "It's work," he said, though he didn't open the message. "Everything okay?" I asked softly. He nodded too quickly. "Yeah, just annoying people." The air thickened. Something shifted in his expression, a flicker of guilt or fear. I couldn't tell which. I reached for his hand, and he pulled away like my touch was fire. "Malik," I whispered. He forced a smile. "Baby, I'm fine. You're overthinking." It was the same thing Tasha said, the same tone, the same dismissal. My stomach twisted. My intuition wasn't whispering anymore. It was screaming. That night, I had the dream again, the one with the empty office and the silhouette. But this time, the man turned his head slightly, just enough for me to see a sharp outline of his jaw, the faint glow of city lights behind him. And when I woke, there was this pressure in my chest like my life was shifting towards something I couldn't see yet. Then came the moment that should have told me everything, should have cracked the blindfold I had tied around my heart. Malik came home late again. Too late. He smelled like perfume, a soft floral scent I didn't recognize. Not mine, not my coworkers. I asked him gently, "Where were you?" He kissed my forehead too fast. "Out with the guys." I nodded slowly. "Which guys?" He hesitated, a tiny pause, barely noticeable. But I noticed. "Just the guys." I turned away to hide the hurt, and when I did, a notification lit up his phone. I didn't touch it. I didn't snoop, but the preview was enough to freeze my blood. "Same time tomorrow?" My ears rang. My heart dropped into my stomach. I stood there silently, pretending to wash a dish while my world tilted sideways. Malik walked into the bedroom like nothing happened. I stayed in the kitchen, gripping the edge of the sink so hard my knuckles turned white. I stared at my reflection in the window, the city lights behind me glowing, my face pale with realization. My chest tightened. My breath stuttered. I knew something was wrong, deeply wrong. But I didn't know the worst part yet. I didn't know the truth was closer than I imagined. I didn't know betrayal had already entered my home wearing a familiar face, a face I trusted, a face I loved, and the next night, that face knocked on my door. The night after that message lit up Malik's phone, my heart refused to settle. I lay awake staring at the ceiling, counting each slow breath like it would stop the dread crawling up my spine. But dread doesn't stop. It waits, it whispers, it sits quietly in the corner of your chest until life gives it permission to come alive. And the next evening, dread became a living thing. I had just finished a long day at the Hartwell Group, a day full of design revisions and whispered office rumors about the company's new owner, when someone knocked on my door. Not Malik. His text said he'd be home late. Not a delivery driver, not a neighbor. The knock was soft, familiar, and carried a weight I felt in my bones. When I opened the door, there stood Tasha, my best friend, my sister in everything but blood. Her hair was styled, her lips glossed, and her eyes wouldn't meet mine. I forced a smile. Hey girl, you good? Her voice cracked around the edges. Yeah, I was in the area. A lie. Tasha never just happened to be anywhere. She stepped inside slowly, as if crossing a line she couldn't uncross. She looked around our apartment like she was seeing a ghost. Malik home? She asked too quickly. No, I replied, watching her closely. Something inside her flinched, and that was the first time I felt it clearly. Not suspicion, not unease. Fear, hers, not mine. She sat on the couch, fingers trembling against her purse strap, while I sat across from her, feeling the air thicken between us. After a long silence, she whispered, Janelle, if something ever hurt you, you tell me, right? Something inside me dropped. My voice was steady when I answered, Of course, but her eyes filled with tears, not mine. And that was when I knew, whatever she came to say, she wasn't brave enough to say it. We sat in that heavy quiet for a full minute, both of us pretending not to see the storm gathering in the space between us. I watched her closely, waiting. She opened her mouth to speak. Then her phone buzzed. She snatched it from her purse so fast the motion startled me. Her thumb covered the screen, hiding the notification. Work, she said. Too fast, too sharp, too rehearsed. Something cold slid down my spine. She wasn't here because she missed me. She wasn't here because she wanted company. She was here because something was unraveling faster than she could contain it. You okay? I asked gently. She nodded, then shook her head, then nodded again. Her eyes were glossy, her breathing uneven. I shouldn't have come, she whispered suddenly, standing up. I don't know. I thought. She cut herself off, wiping her face. Forget it. She reached for the door, hands shaking so hard she could barely turn the knob. I grabbed her wrist. Tasha, talk to me. She froze. Her shoulders rose with a slow, shaky inhale, and when she finally looked at me, her eyes carried a guilt so deep it felt ancient. Janelle, she whispered, voice breaking, you deserve better than the people around you. She pulled away from me like touching me hurt, and then she ran, full speed down the hallway. I stood there in the doorway, heart pounding, breath stuck in my throat. I didn't know what to think. I didn't know how to feel. All I knew was this: something terrible was waiting for me, and the people I loved most were standing in front of it like shadows hiding a monster. After she left, I couldn't sit still. My body felt too tight, too wired, like there was electricity under my skin. I paced the apartment until my legs burned. I checked my phone every 30 seconds. Nothing from Malik, nothing from Tasha, just silence, thick, suffocating silence. I went into the kitchen, opened the fridge, closed it, opened it again just to feel like I was doing something. But the real truth was pounding inside my chest. I wasn't imagining it anymore. Something was wrong, deeply wrong. At work the next morning, I couldn't focus. I spilled coffee on my desk, dropped my pencil 3 times, missed half of what my coworkers said. Every time my phone buzzed, I jumped. But the messages weren't from Malik or Tasha. They were from clients, coworkers, appointment reminders. Normal things in a not normal time. Then during lunch, something happened that made my breath stop. I walked into the women's restroom to wash my hands, and there on the counter was a gold bracelet, a simple one, delicate, familiar. Tasha's, the one she never took off, the one I helped her pick out 2 years ago, the one she swore she could never lose. But there it was, lying on the counter of my job in Midtown Houston. Why was it here? When had she been here? Why didn't she tell me she'd come? I picked it up and my hands shook so hard the bracelet almost slipped from my fingers. My own reflection stared back at me through the mirror, eyes wide, lips parted, chest rising and falling too fast. And in that moment, everything inside me whispered the same thing. It's happening. Whatever you've been denying, it's happening. I slipped the bracelet into my bag with trembling fingers. I wasn't ready to confront her. Not yet. Not until I knew more. Not until I had actual proof. By the time I got home that night, my nerves were shredded. The apartment was dark, too dark. I kept the lights off as I walked through the living room, dropping my bag onto the couch. My mind wouldn't stop replaying the image of her bracelet in the office bathroom. I tried calling her, no answer. I texted, "Did you come to my job today?" Read, no reply. My stomach twisted so hard I had to sit down. I ran both hands over my face, trying not to fall apart. And then, just when I thought my chest couldn't tighten any further, the front door opened. Slowly, quietly. Malik walked in, eyes avoiding mine. "Hey," he said softly, dropping his keys onto the counter. I stared at him in the dim light. "Where were you?" I asked. He hesitated, too long. "Work," he said. "Late meeting." My throat burned. "You sure?" He looked up then, eyes sharp, defensive. "Why would I lie?" I laughed, a short, humorless sound that felt like it cracked something in the air. "Why would you?" He froze. The silence between us grew thick, heavy, dangerous. Then his phone buzzed. He glanced at it, locked the screen, turned it face down. But I saw the preview. I saw it clearly. A name, a message. From Tasha, same place? The room spun. My breath left my body. All the blood in my veins turned to ice. And Malik didn't know I saw. Not yet. The moment I saw Tasha's name flash across Malik's phone, same place? Time didn't slow down. It didn't freeze. It didn't give me space to breathe. No, everything inside me collapsed at once, like a tower held up by lies finally giving way. I stood there in the dim glow of the apartment, staring at the phone on the counter as Malik moved around casually, humming under his breath like his betrayal wasn't vibrating right there in front of us. My heartbeat was loud, so loud it drowned out everything else. I felt heat rush to my face, my vision blurring for a second. My fingers curled against my palms so tightly my nails dug into my skin. Malik didn't notice. He didn't even look up. He just took off his jacket and opened the fridge like life was normal. "You ate already?" he asked casually. I blinked, swallowing the sting in my chest. "No," I said quietly. My voice didn't sound like mine. It sounded like a version of me standing in the wreckage of something she used to believe in. He nodded, reaching for a bottle of water. "Well, I'm starving," he said, walking past me toward the bedroom. I watched him go, watched him move with the ease of a man who thought he could lie to me forever and I'd never see the truth. And in that moment, I realized something sharp and painful. I wasn't confused anymore. I wasn't imagining things. I wasn't paranoid. I was betrayed. And the girl I used to be, the soft girl, the trusting girl, the forgiving girl, felt like she was slipping out of my body with every breath. I walked to the couch and sat down slowly, like the weight of the truth had finally dropped onto my shoulders. My hands shook uncontrollably. My chest ached, not in a dramatic movie way, but in a deep, physical way that felt like my ribs couldn't expand fully. I kept replaying everything in my mind, the glances, the excuses, the whispering, Tasha's trembling voice, her sudden visits, her sudden disappearances, Malik's growing distance, the perfume I didn't recognize, the dream of the man in the office. Life had been trying to warn me. My spirit had been trying to warn me. And I pushed every warning aside because I loved them both too much to believe they could hurt me like this. I buried my face in my hands and sobbed, quiet at first, then sharp, painful, messy. Every tear felt like a piece of me dissolving. All the memories spilled out. Tasha fixing my hair for dates, Malik kissing my forehead after long days, the three of us laughing at brunch as if betrayal wasn't already forming between us. The grief wasn't just for Malik. It was for her. It was for the friendship I thought was unbreakable. It was for the version of me who believed loyalty meant safety. I cried until my throat burned, until my breath came in broken pieces, until I felt emptied out. When the tears slowed, I wiped my face, took a shaky breath, and whispered to myself, "You deserve to know." And with those words, something in my spirit straightened, just enough to stand. I needed proof, something undeniable, something they couldn't twist into lies. I stood from the couch, wiped my cheeks, and walked into the bedroom like I wasn't breaking inside. Malik was in the shower, steam rolling under the bathroom door. I sat on the edge of the bed, staring at his phone on the nightstand. My hands shook as I reached for it. Not because I wanted to snoop, but because I already knew. This wasn't snooping. This was confirming. His phone was locked. Of course it was. I tried his birthday. Wrong. I tried my birthday. Wrong. I tried the first 4 digits of our anniversary. Wrong. My stomach twisted. Then something in my mind whispered, "Tasha." I typed in her birthday. The phone unlocked instantly. My heart dropped into my stomach so fast I felt physically sick. I opened the messages, and there it was. Thread after thread after thread. Late night conversations, heart emojis, photos, plans. Same place, miss you tonight. She suspects something. I'll see you soon. I felt my hands go numb. The room spun. My eyes burned. I scrolled, each message stabbing deeper than the last. The worst part wasn't even the words. It was the familiarity, the casualness, the comfort. They weren't having an accident. They weren't having a moment of weakness. They were having a relationship, a whole relationship behind my back. I scrolled until I couldn't breathe, until every piece of denial I had held on to was gone. Then I set the phone down gently, like it wasn't a weapon that had just destroyed me. When Malik came out of the shower, towel on his waist, humming some tune like he wasn't living a double life, I sat still on the edge of the bed. My tears had dried into something sharp and dangerous. My body was no longer shaking. I felt cold, quiet, steady in a way that almost scared me. You okay? He asked, rubbing his hair with a towel. I looked up slowly. Yeah, I whispered. He smiled. He actually smiled. Good. I thought you seemed off earlier. I stared at him for a long second, studying his face. How had I loved someone who could look me in the eyes and lie like this? How had I given my life to a man who could betray me with a girl who held my secrets? My whole body felt tight, like holding a breath I couldn't release. Malik, I said softly. He looked up. Yeah? Where were you today? His eyes flickered, just a small shift, but enough. Work, he said, grabbing lotion from the dresser. Why? I swallowed the pain rising in my throat. And Tasha? His hand stilled. The room went silent. He didn't turn around. He didn't breathe. And in that 1 second of stillness, the truth screamed louder than any words. He turned slowly. What about her? He asked carefully. I held his gaze. She left something at my job. He frowned. At your job? Yeah, I said quietly. Her bracelet. His eyes widened, barely, but enough. Janelle, he started, but before he could continue, my phone buzzed on the bed. A single message. A number I didn't recognize. I picked it up slowly, opened the notification, and my entire world shifted. A photo. Malik, Tasha, in a place I knew, smiling, and the caption under it, "You deserve to see the rest." The moment the photo loaded on my screen, my breath left my body like someone had punched the air out of my lungs. I stared at it, my hands shaking so violently I dropped the phone onto the bed. Malik and Tasha, together, standing outside a hotel I recognized. A hotel we had gone to on our anniversary. A hotel that held memories I once thought were sacred. I picked up the phone again with trembling fingers, the room spinning around me. Their faces were close, too close. Smiling in a way people only smile when they feel safe, when they feel chosen, when they believe they're allowed to celebrate something they shouldn't even have. My chest tightened until it hurt. Malik stood across the room watching me, towel still hanging around his waist, his expression shifting from casual confusion to dread. He took a step forward. Janelle, what is that? I held up the phone. My voice came out low, shaking, broken. You tell me. His eyes flicked to the screen, and in that instant, I saw it. The truth, the guilt, the fear, the recognition. He didn't even pretend. He didn't ask, what do you mean? He didn't deny it. He didn't try to twist my words. His silence was the confession. My heart cracked in a way I never knew a heart could crack. It didn't shatter all at once. It split slowly first, like a fault line opening beneath your feet, then collapsed, taking everything with it. Janelle, listen, he began, stepping toward me. Don't, I whispered, stepping back. My voice trembled. Don't come near me. He swallowed hard, dropping the towel around his shoulders. It's not what it looks like, he said finally. A classic line from a man who'd run out of lies. I let out a weak, broken laugh. Really? Because it looks like my best friend and my fiancé are having an entire relationship behind my back. His jaw clenched. It wasn't like that. My vision blurred with hot, angry tears. Then what was it like, Malik? Explain it to me. He opened and closed his mouth, searching for words that didn't exist. It was a mistake, he said quietly. One mistake. My heart twisted painfully. One? I stepped forward now, fury drowning out the grief. One mistake that lasted for months? One mistake that had you lying to me every night? One mistake that had her in your phone under a fake name? One mistake that had you in hotel rooms smiling like you won the lottery? His face hardened. You're being dramatic. Something inside me snapped so loudly, I swear the room heard it. I felt my voice rise, not in a scream, not in hysteria, but in the calmest, coldest tone I had ever heard come out of my own mouth. Dramatic? Malik, you destroyed everything. You broke us. You broke me. You broke the girl who trusted you more than she trusted herself. And you did it with the one person you knew I loved like a sister. My tears fell freely then, dropping onto the carpet like tiny bombs. Malik reached for me again. Baby, please. I jerked my arm away. Don't touch me. He started pacing, running his hands over his hair. I messed up, okay? But I love you, Janelle. I was going to stop it. I felt sick, nauseous. You already should have stopped it before it even began. He stopped pacing and turned toward me with desperation in his eyes. Desperation not to lose me, but desperation not to lose control. We can fix this, he pleaded. We can work through this. I shook my head. We? My voice wavered. There is no we, Malik. The tears wouldn't stop coming now. They ran hot down my cheeks, dripping onto my shirt. You don't betray the person you love. You don't betray them with the one person they trust the most. My vision blurred as I reached into the nightstand, grabbed the small velvet ring box, and pressed it into his hand. His fingers curled around it instinctively. Take it, I whispered. Take everything that came with it. Malik's eyes filled with something I couldn't name: fear, regret, anger, entitlement. Janelle, don't do this. I inhaled shakily. You did this. The silence that followed was suffocating. We weren't shouting. We weren't fighting. We were breaking, slowly, painfully, quietly. The way things really end when they were never as strong as you thought. Then my phone buzzed again. That same unknown number. One more message. If you want the truth, come to 14th and Mason, now. My breath caught. Malik saw it. Don't go, he said quickly, stepping forward. Janelle, please, don't go anywhere. But I was already grabbing my shoes, wiping my face with the back of my hand, adrenaline rushing through my veins. Why? I asked bitterly. Because she'll be there? He stepped toward me, panic rising in his voice. Janelle, just stay. We need to talk. I cut him off, my voice low and trembling. I don't owe you another minute of my time. His face fell, but I didn't stop. I picked up my keys and walked to the door. My hand shook as I gripped the handle. You can pack your things, I whispered without turning around. When I get back, I don't want to see you here. Malik's voice cracked with disbelief. You're leaving? Now? In the middle of this? I closed my eyes, tears burning. In the middle of this? Malik, this is the end of this. I opened the door. The hallway felt colder than the inside of my apartment. And if Tasha is there, I said softly, God help her. Then I stepped out and slammed the door behind me. The drive to 14th and Mason didn't feel real. The Houston streets blurred through my tears. My hands trembled around the steering wheel. My chest hurt so badly I had to pull over once just to breathe. Every red light felt like another second I was away from the truth. Every green light felt like I was being pulled forward by something bigger than anger, something like destiny. When I finally turned onto Mason Street, the air felt heavy, like the city itself was holding its breath. I parked across from an old, dimly lit cafe I recognized only vaguely. My stomach clenched. I stepped out of the car slowly, heart pounding, breathing shallow. The cafe windows were fogged, the neon sign flickering above them. I crossed the street, each step feeling heavier than the last. Then I saw her, sitting in the corner booth, head down, hands clasped together. Tasha, my best friend, the person I trusted most in the world after Malik. She looked up when the door opened, and our eyes met through the glass. And in her eyes, I didn't see guilt. I saw terror, not of me, of something else, someone else. I didn't know it yet, but this moment wasn't the end of my heartbreak. It was the beginning of something bigger, darker, stranger, something I wasn't ready for. The bell above the cafe door jingled softly as I stepped inside. The warm air smelled like old coffee and cinnamon pastries, but nothing about the moment felt warm. My heartbeat thundered in my ears as I walked toward the booth where Tasha sat hunched over, shoulders trembling slightly, eyes red like she had been crying long before I arrived. She didn't look up this time, not until I sat across from her. When she finally lifted her head, her mouth opened like she wanted to say my name, but her voice cracked before the sound ever came. I sat motionless, my hands clenched into fists on my lap. I didn't ask how she was. I didn't ask why she called me here. I let the silence hang in the air, heavy and suffocating, until she broke first. Janelle, she whispered, her voice shaking. Please just let me explain. I leaned back, my face unreadable. Explain? After everything I just saw? The photo burned in my memory. Malik's smile, her smile, their bodies close. Tasha sobbed into her palms, shoulders shaking. I never meant for any of this to happen, she cried. I stared at her, numb. You don't accidentally end up in hotel rooms with someone's fiancé. She winced. I know, I wasn't thinking. I was stupid. I was weak. I leaned forward, my voice sharp. Weak doesn't ruin friendships. Weak doesn't lie to my face every single day. Weak doesn't sneak around with the man I plan to marry. Her tears fell faster. I didn't plan any of it, she said. It just happened. I slammed my hand on the table, making her jump. Stop saying that. Nothing just happens. Tell me the truth, all of it, right now. She wiped her face with shaking hands, breathing hard, like the truth itself was suffocating her. It started months ago, she whispered. My stomach dropped. When you were busy with work, when Malik and I kept running into each other. She swallowed hard. One night, we talked, really talked, more than we'd ever talked before. A sharp pain exploded in my chest. I gripped the edge of the table to steady myself. Talked? I spat. That's what you're calling it? She shook her head quickly. No, just listen, please. He told me he felt lonely, that you were distant. My blood boiled. I was working. I was building a future for us, for him. Tasha sobbed harder. I know. I wasn't thinking. He kissed me first. The cafe felt like it blurred for a second. He kissed you? I whispered hollowly. She nodded, ashamed. But I didn't stop it. She covered her face. I didn't stop anything. I kept going back. I kept choosing him. And every time I told myself I'd stop, that I'd end it. But then her voice broke completely. I fell for him too. My breath caught. A sharp, painful inhale that felt like swallowing glass. I stared at her, everything inside me going still. So you weren't just sleeping with him, I said slowly. You loved him? Her silence was my answer. Something inside me shattered then, quietly like the breaking of fine glass. Not loud, not violent, but final. I stood up fast enough that the chair screeched against the floor. People in the cafe turned to look. I didn't care. Tasha reached for my hand. Janelle, please, I jerked away. Don't touch me. Don't ever touch me again. She sobbed harder. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Sorry? I snapped. You betrayed me with the one person you knew was my weakness. But you took the one man I trusted with my whole life and turned him into a weapon against me. She shook her head frantically. Janelle, please listen. He lied to me too. He told me he wasn't happy. He told me he wasn't sure if he wanted. Rage exploded in me. Don't you dare finish that sentence. She shrank under the weight of my voice. I stepped closer, my voice low and trembling. You were supposed to be my friend. You were supposed to protect me. You were supposed to be the one person in this world who would never hurt me like this. She broke down completely, crying into her hands. I know. I ruined everything. I ruined us. I stared at her, my vision blurring again. No, I said softly. You didn't ruin us. She looked up instantly, hope flashing in her swollen eyes. Janelle, you killed us. Her face crumpled. Please don't walk away. Please, say something else. Anything else. I inhaled deeply, my voice barely above a whisper. There's nothing left to say. I turned and walked toward the door, not because I was strong, but because staying any longer would have broken what little of me was left. The moment I stepped outside, the night air hit me like a wall, cold, sharp, sobering. I leaned against the brick building, struggling to breathe. My heart hurt in ways I didn't know a heart could hurt. Not a soft ache, not a quiet sadness, a deep, violent ripping. Betrayal didn't just break my heart, it hollowed out my chest. I closed my eyes, tears slipping down my cheeks. I didn't know what to do, where to go, who to call. Malik and Tasha, my two anchors, had turned into the storms drowning me. I stood there for several minutes, letting myself cry into the night air, letting myself fall apart where no one could hear it. When I finally wiped my face and straightened, my phone buzzed again. A message. Not from Malik, not from Tasha. From that unknown number. He's lying to both of you. My breath hitched. Another message followed. There's more you need to know. I stepped away from the wall, chest tightening. More? I whispered into the night. What more could there be? Then the final message came. Go home. Now. My heart stopped. A cold fear shot up my spine. I ran to my car, my hands trembling as I fumbled with the keys. The entire drive home felt like a blur, fear pumping through my veins. When I pulled up to my apartment building, the lights in the hallway flickered, something they never did. Everything felt wrong, too quiet, too tense. And when I opened my apartment door, someone was inside. Not Malik, not Tasha, someone else. And they were waiting for me. When I stepped into my apartment and saw someone standing in the living room, the breath left my body so fast I nearly collapsed. The figure straightened slowly, stepping forward into the dim overhead light, and my entire chest loosened when I realized who it was. Miss Hartwell, my boss. The woman who ran the Hartwell Group with an iron spine and eyes that saw deeper than most people dared to look. She stood there in her navy blazer, her curly gray hair tied back, her face calm. But her eyes were full of something I had never seen in them before. Concern. Janelle, she said softly, I'm sorry for letting myself in. Your door was slightly open. I knocked, but you didn't answer. I blinked hard, trying to steady my breath. What are you doing here? My voice cracked. She stepped closer, gently placing a hand on my shoulder like someone placing a blanket over a shaking child. I needed to check on you, she said. And when I didn't respond, she looked around the room, at the pictures on the wall, the ring box on the table, the phone still buzzing in my hand. She took a slow breath. Someone from your building called the office, said they heard, shouting earlier, said you left in tears. My stomach twisted. I didn't even remember running out, didn't remember if I screamed, didn't remember anything but the rage and heartbreak. I looked away, tears burning my eyes again. Everything is falling apart, I whispered. She nodded, squeezing my shoulder gently. Then let it, she said softly. Sometimes things fall apart because you've outgrown them. I covered my face as the sobs hit again. Loud, messy, unstoppable. And she didn't move. She didn't say anything else. She just stood there like a wall behind me while my entire life burned down around my feet. When the sobs finally slowed, she guided me to sit on the couch. Tell me, she said simply. So I did. I didn't mean to. It poured out. The photo, the messages, the lies, the hotel, the bracelet, the confrontation, the cafe, the unknown number, the truth Tasha confessed, the fear in her eyes. Miss Hartwell listened with her arms crossed, her jaw tightening with every detail. And when I finished, she said something I didn't expect. Good, she murmured. I frowned, confused. Good? She nodded sharply. Now you know who does not deserve to walk with you into your future. Her words hit something deep inside me, something that was still bleeding. It hurts, I whispered. It feels like I'm dying. She leaned forward. Good love will break you before it builds you. That's how you know the difference between love and danger. One destroys your vision, the other sharpens it. I stared at her, the truth settling heavily inside my chest. I feel empty, I whispered, hollow. She nodded. And that means you're ready for real change. She stood up then, walking to my counter, picking up the ring box Malik left behind. Men like him don't deserve women like you, she said. And women like her don't deserve your loyalty. Let them go, completely. I swallowed the sting in my chest. I don't know who I am without them. She set the ring box down with a quiet, final thud. Then it's time to find out. Her eyes softened. And you will, in ways you can't imagine yet. The unknown number buzzed my phone again. But this time I let it ring out. I wasn't ready for more hidden truths. Not that night. Not when my chest already felt like an open wound. Miss Hartwell gently turned my phone face down on the table. You can look at that tomorrow, she said. Tonight, breathe. She walked to the kitchen, poured me a glass of water, placed it in my hands. Drink, she instructed. Her voice was firm but warm. I sipped slowly, my throat tight. She sat across from me, her expression unreadable. Janelle, she said after a long pause. I came here for another reason, too. I looked up, confused. You did? She nodded. Tomorrow morning, the new CEO arrives. My heart stuttered. The name I had been hearing whispers about for weeks slid into my mind like a shadow. Elijah Knight, she said. He's taking control of everything, including the design department. I straightened a little. What does that have to do with me? She leaned forward. He saw your portfolio. My breath caught. He asked for you by name. A sharp electric chill ran through my body. Me? Yes, she said. And he will expect excellence, precision, focus. There is no room for emotional distraction once he takes over. I swallowed hard. I don't know if I'm ready for new pressure. She shook her head. You are, and you don't have a choice. Her voice softened. Your future is calling you, Janelle. You can't let hurt make you miss the door opening right in front of you. Then she stood, picking up her purse. Rest, cry, sleep. But tomorrow, you step into that building like the world hasn't bruised you. She opened the door, stepped out, then paused. This pain is the last thing your old life needed to shed before your new one begins. And then she was gone. I sat there long after she left, the apartment quiet except for the low hum of the air conditioner. My tears had dried into a dull ache behind my eyes. I walked to the bedroom, grabbing a trash bag. Slowly, painfully, I picked up everything that reminded me of Malik. The pictures, the shirt he left, the watch I bought him last Christmas, the silly little notes he used to leave me before the lies began. Each item was a stab, a cut, a reopening of a wound. But I kept going until the bag was full. Then I did something that surprised even me. I carried it outside to the dumpster behind the building. I didn't hesitate. I didn't give myself time to reconsider. I threw the bag in and listened to it land at the bottom with a heavy, final thud. It sounded like closure. It sounded like breaking chains. It sounded like someone stepping out of a fire. When I went back inside, I blocked Malik, blocked Tasha, deleted their pictures, deleted their messages, deleted their presence from my phone like scraping poison off my skin. I showered for almost an hour, letting the water beat against my back until the ache softened just enough to breathe. When I finally lay in bed, wrapped in a towel, staring up at the ceiling, the silence felt different. Not peaceful, not calm, but empty in a way that made room for something new. A space inside me had been violently cleared, and when space is cleared, life fills it with something unexpected. My phone buzzed one last time that night. For a moment, I considered ignoring it. But something in me said to look. It wasn't Malik. It wasn't Tasha. It wasn't the unknown number. It was an email. From HR, the Hartwell Group. Subject: mandatory 8 a.m. meeting with new CEO E. Knight. My breath hitched, my heart still cracked open, fluttered once. Tomorrow, 8 a.m. The man I've been hearing rumors about for weeks. The man people describe with fear and fascination. The man who would become my direct boss. The man who would change everything about my future. The man who would become the one person I never saw coming. Elijah Knight. And as I lay there, heart bruised and eyes swollen, I had no idea that the man I would meet in the morning would break every rule I set for myself and rebuild every part of me I thought was gone forever. The next morning felt like it belonged to someone else, someone stronger, someone who didn't spend the night crying into her pillow or scrubbing betrayal off her skin. My alarm rang at 5:45 a.m., but I was already awake, eyes swollen, head pounding, heart numb. Houston's sky was still dark, just a faint purple glow stretching above the skyline. I moved through my tiny apartment in silence, the air cold against my bare arms. I showered again, letting the water wash over me until my body felt steady enough to stand. Then I dressed carefully, almost ritualistically. Black slacks, crisp white blouse, my favorite structured blazer. A look that said, I am not falling apart. I am in control, even if it was a lie. I tied my hair into a low bun, did my makeup slowly, layering foundation over the evidence of everything I had survived just hours earlier. When I finished, I stared at my reflection. My eyes looked older, tired. But behind the exhaustion, something had sharpened, something fierce, something new. I whispered into the mirror, "You show up anyway." Then I grabbed my bag, locked the door behind me, and walked into the cool morning air. The city felt different that day. The streets were quieter, the breeze colder, the sun slower to rise, as if Houston itself sensed a shift in my life. As I drove toward the Hartwell Group, my heart pounded harder with every mile. Not because of Malik, not because of Tasha, but because of the man I was about to meet. The man whose name had already stirred something in me long before I ever saw his face. Elijah Knight. I didn't know why his name felt heavy, or why I couldn't shake the dream of the silhouette in the empty office, the one standing in the glow of city lights. I told myself it was coincidence, stress, nerves. But deep down, something whispered otherwise. When I reached the building, employees were rushing through the lobby faster than usual, their whispers floating through the air like static. He's already upstairs. He arrived early, like 6 a.m. early. He's not playing with anybody. He's handsome, but terrifying. He fired a whole team in New York just for missing deadlines. No nonsense, no excuses. My stomach twisted, but not with fear. More like anticipation mixed with something warmer, something I didn't want to name yet. I rode the elevator to the top floor with my heart thumping in my chest. As the doors opened onto the executive level, I saw people gathered outside the main boardroom. HR reps, department heads, senior designers. Everyone was tense, shoulders stiff, voices hushed. Miss Hartwell spotted me and motioned for me to stand beside her. "You're early," she whispered. "Good. He values that." I swallowed hard. "Is he intense?" She gave a humorless laugh. "Intense doesn't cover half of it." My pulse quickened. "Do we know what he looks like?" She nodded toward the glass wall of the boardroom. "You're about to." I turned my head slowly, eyes narrowing through the tinted glass. A tall figure stood inside, broad shoulders, immaculate charcoal suit, hands clasped behind his back as he studied the city below. His posture was straight, controlled, powerful. The room seemed to bend around him. Even from behind, he radiated something impossible to ignore, something magnetic, something dangerous. My chest tightened, the silhouette, the dream, the outline of a man standing in a high office at night. The same energy, the same shape, the same stillness. My breath hitched. "Janelle," Miss Hartwell whispered, "don't stare too long." But I couldn't look away, not until the boardroom door finally opened. He walked out slowly, and the hallway went silent, completely silent. Elijah Knight was breathtaking, not in the way pretty men are, not soft, not charming. He was carved, sharp jawline, warm brown skin that caught the morning light, eyes that were dark and observant, taking in everything without revealing a single thought. His suit fit like it was made just for him. His presence felt heavier than gravity, as if the air itself shifted when he moved. He didn't smile. He didn't nod. He simply scanned the room with a calm intensity that made grown executives straighten like students in front of a strict principal. When his eyes finally landed on me, my breath stopped. Not slowed, stopped. His gaze lingered, studied, not in a disrespectful way, in a knowing way, like he could see something beneath my polished exterior, something raw, something wounded, something strong. The corner of his jaw tightened slightly, barely noticeable. He turned to the room. "Good morning," he said, his voice deep and steady, the kind of voice that made commands sound like law. "Let's begin." The meeting was a blur of plans, restructuring, expectations. I tried to focus, but his presence was like a current pulling my attention again and again. Watching him command the room was like watching a storm form, controlled, powerful, elegant, and unstoppable. And the strangest thing, the more he spoke, the more something inside me, something broken, shifted. Not healed, not yet, but moved. Halfway through the meeting, he lifted a sleek black folder from the table and tapped the cover with one finger. "One of these designs stood out," he said. My heart stumbled. The room held its breath. Clean lines, strong angles, emotion without chaos, precision without losing warmth. His eyes moved across the table and found mine again. "Janelle Carter," he said. My name in his mouth felt different, grounded, certain, like he already knew what I was capable of. "Stand." I rose slowly, palms sweaty, heart thundering. He held up the folder. "Your portfolio." I nodded nervously. He set it down. "Impressive work." My chest tightened. "Thank you," I whispered. He tilted his head slightly. "Don't whisper. If you're going to speak in my meetings, speak with certainty." The room stiffened. My cheeks warmed. "Yes, sir," I said more clearly. His eyes softened for a fraction of a second, so quick I almost thought I imagined it. Then he continued. "You'll be working under me directly." My breath caught. The room went silent again. "We have a major client in 3 weeks," he said. "High stakes, high pressure. I expect nothing short of excellence." He closed my portfolio gently. "Can you deliver?" The answer rose inside me, not from pride, not from fear, but from something deeper. "Yes," I said firmly. His gaze sharpened. "Good." He stepped back. Meeting dismissed. Chairs slid, people stood, conversations erupted, but I couldn't move. My heart raced, my mind spun. My body felt both frozen and electrified. I finally gathered my things and turned toward the door, only to feel a presence shift behind me. I turned. Elijah stood inches away. Close, too close, close enough to smell him. Clean woods, expensive cologne, something warm and masculine. My breath trembled. He lowered his voice, his eyes never leaving mine. "You came in with swollen eyes." My stomach dropped. "Sir, I don't need details," he said calmly, "but I do need you focused." My throat tightened. "I will be," I whispered. He stepped even closer, just a breath between us. "Good." His eyes softened again. "Because you're too talented to let anything at home destroy what you're building here." I froze. He turned and walked away. His steps strong, controlled, precise, and for a moment I couldn't breathe. I couldn't think. I couldn't move. Something inside me, something I thought was dead, fluttered. I watched him disappear into his office, and my knees went weak. Because in a single morning, I'd lost one world and stepped into another I wasn't ready for. And somehow I already knew Elijah Knight would be the most dangerous story of my life. The rest of that morning passed in a blur, but there was one thing I remember with painful clarity. The way Elijah Knight moved through the office as if he owned not just the building, but the very air inside it. People straightened their backs when he walked by. Conversations died mid-sentence. Even the lights felt brighter around him, like the room tried to impress him. I spent most of the morning in a daze, floating between tasks while replaying his voice in my head. You came in with swollen eyes. It wasn't the words. It was the way he said them. Quiet, observant. Like he wasn't asking for details, but acknowledging that he saw what everyone else ignored. At lunch, I sat alone in the break room, staring at my salad while the world moved around me. My heart was still broken, raw, tender, aching. Yet for the first time since the betrayal, the pain wasn't the only thing I felt. There was something else. Something like a spark flickering under the ashes. A strange awareness that someone powerful had seen me in a moment of weakness and didn't judge me for it. That someone like him, cold, brilliant, respected, feared, had noticed me at all. And yet, I felt guilty for feeling anything other than grief. My entire life had fallen apart less than 24 hours ago. I wasn't supposed to be noticing the way a man's presence filled a room. I wasn't supposed to be replaying the way his eyes softened when he told me to focus. I wasn't supposed to be breathing in the memory of his cologne like it was oxygen. I pushed my salad away, frustration tightening my chest. Get it together, Janelle, I whispered under my breath, but my heart didn't listen. By mid-afternoon, the executive team gathered for a project briefing in the conference room. Elijah sat at the head of the table, reviewing documents while the rest of us shuffled in nervously. He didn't look up when I entered, but I felt him notice me anyway, like the air shifted slightly in my direction. I took my seat, keeping my eyes lowered. He opened the meeting with the same commanding calm he always carried. We have 3 weeks to prove this department deserves the budget we're asking for, he said. I want precision, creativity, discipline, no mistakes. His eyes finally lifted and landed directly on me. Janelle, you're presenting your revised mood board today. My heart jumped. Me? I blurted and regretted it instantly. A ripple of quiet laughter moved through the room. But Elijah didn't laugh. His jaw tightened. Yes, he said smoothly. You. He gestured to the screen behind him. Now. I stood, hands trembling, pulse racing as I connected my laptop. My vision blurred for a moment, the emotional weight of everything threatening to crush me. But then, just before I began, my eyes flicked to Elijah. His gaze held mine. Steady, intense, grounding. Focus, his eyes seemed to say. Not harshly, not unkindly, but with an almost silent promise. You can do this. Something inside me steadied. I took a slow breath and began. The words came out smoother than I expected. My voice didn't shake. My ideas made sense. My hands stopped trembling as I explained the lighting plan, the textures, the emotional concept behind the layout. And the whole time I felt Elijah watching me, not like a critic, not like a boss waiting for me to fail, but like someone studying the way a fire emerges from ashes. When I finished, the room stayed quiet for a second too long. Then Elijah spoke. Excellent, he said, his voice firm, final. The words sent warmth rushing through my chest. The other executives nodded, murmuring agreement. My shoulders lowered in relief. Elijah continued. Refine your color palette tonight. I want the revised draft by 7 a.m. 7 a.m. Barely 12 hours away. My breath caught, but I nodded. Yes, sir. His gaze softened almost imperceptibly. Good. The meeting ended. People filtered out. I packed my laptop, heart still pounding. As I prepared to leave, Elijah's voice cut through the room. Janelle, stay a moment. My pulse jumped. I turned slowly. The room was empty now except for him. He didn't look up immediately, just finished signing something on a document before closing his pen. Then he finally spoke. You handled yourself well today, he said, especially considering. His eyes lifted to meet mine. What you're dealing with at home. My breath caught. You don't know what I'm dealing with, I whispered. His gaze deepened. I don't need the details to recognize pain. My throat tightened. I'm fine, I lied. He stepped closer, not too close, but close enough that I felt the shift in the air between us. You don't have to be, he said quietly. Something stung behind my eyes. Before I could speak, my phone vibrated inside my bag. I didn't need to check the screen, not after the guilt stabbed low in my stomach. Malik. I knew it was him. Elijah's eyes flicked to my bag. If that's the source of your pain, he said softly, let it ring. My breath trembled. Malik's name flashed across the screen. Over and over, my hands shook as I silenced the call. Good, Elijah murmured. I opened my mouth to ask him how he knew, but he stepped past me, walking toward the door. He paused only once, turning back just slightly. Walk in tomorrow like today didn't touch you, he said. And if you fall apart, not here. My eyes widened. He added, not alone either. Before I could respond, he walked away. His tall frame disappeared down the hallway, leaving me standing in the doorway with my heart pounding in my chest and something else blooming beneath my ribs, something I wasn't ready for, something I didn't have a name for yet. I stood there long after he left, my breath shaky, my mind spinning. Everything inside me felt tangled, still grieving, still angry, still raw, but also alive in a way I didn't expect. It terrified me. It thrilled me. It confused me so deeply my knees felt weak. I gathered my things and walked toward the elevator. As the doors closed, I caught my reflection in the mirrored wall, eyes still bruised with heartbreak but burning with something new. Hope? No. Not hope. Not yet. Interest? Maybe. Curiosity? Absolutely. Because Elijah Knight wasn't just a boss, or a man in a suit, or an authority figure. He was a force. And for the first time in a long time, my spirit wasn't warning me to run. It was pulling me closer. I left the building, stepped into the cool night air, and let myself feel something I hadn't felt since before the betrayal, possibility. Then my phone buzzed with one last message from Malik. I'm outside your apartment. We need to talk. And in that single moment, standing outside the skyscraper Elijah Knight ruled like a kingdom, I understood something deeply, painfully clear. I was standing between the ruins of my past and the beginning of something powerful. And tomorrow, I would have to choose which direction to walk. I didn't drive home right away. I sat in my car parked outside the Hartwell Group, my hands gripping the steering wheel so tightly my fingers tingled. Melik's message glowed on my phone screen like a warning flare in the dark. I'm outside your apartment. We need to talk. Part of me wanted to turn the car around and disappear into the night. Another part, the part still bleeding, wanted answers he didn't deserve. But the strongest part of me, the part slowly forming from the ashes of everything I survived, whispered, you don't run anymore. I put the car in drive and headed home, heart thundering with each passing streetlight. When I turned into my complex, there he was, leaning against his car, arms crossed, looking like the same man who once made my world soft. Only now I saw the truth. He looked familiar, but he was a stranger wearing nostalgia like a mask. I parked, stepped out, and closed the door behind me slowly. Malik pushed off his car and walked toward me. Janelle, he breathed, as if saying my name pained him. I held up a hand. Whatever you think you need to say it fast. His face twisted, hurt flashing across it. Please don't do this. You did this. The words cut through the thick air between us. He ran a hand over his jaw. I made a mistake, okay? I messed up, but I love you. A cold, hollow feeling settled in my chest. If you loved me, I whispered, you wouldn't have cheated on me with my best friend. His jaw tightened. I didn't mean to hurt you. I almost laughed. Not because it was funny, but because of how ridiculous the lie sounded out loud. People don't fall into betrayal, Malik. They choose it. His shoulders slumped. The fight drained out of him. I miss you, he whispered. I miss us. My eyes burned, but I blinked the tears back. There is no us. Silence slammed between us. When I turned to walk toward my building, Malik grabbed my wrist gently, not forcefully, not violently, but like someone reaching for a life raft that was slipping away. Janelle, he pleaded, can we please talk inside, not out here? I pulled my wrist free. No, I don't want you in my home ever again. Pain flashed in his eyes, but something else did too, anger he wasn't expecting to feel. Who is he? Malik asked suddenly. I froze. What? Your new boss, he said, voice sharp. The one everyone's talking about, the one you were texting while ignoring me. I stared at him, stunned. I wasn't texting anyone, I snapped. Malik stepped closer, eyes narrowing. So it's true? You already got a replacement? I laughed once, short, bitter, exhausted. You cheated on me with my best friend, and you're worried I moved on? He clenched his jaw so hard the muscle pulsed. I just want to know who he is. I blinked slowly. Why? His voice lowered. Because I saw the way you talked about your job recently. You're different. The words landed hard in my stomach. Different. He was right. I was different. Pain changes people. Betrayal transforms them. Broken hearts don't heal into who they used to be. They heal into someone stronger, someone sharper, someone who no longer accepts crumbs and calls it love. Before I could respond, a car door slammed across the parking lot. Malik and I both turned toward the sound. A familiar, sleek black SUV, a tall figure stepping out. My breath caught. Elijah Knight. He didn't look at Malik. He didn't even glance in his direction. His eyes found me immediately. Sharp, focused, unreadable. He walked toward us with slow, controlled steps, his presence filling the entire space like gravity obeyed him. Malik's shoulders tensed as Elijah approached. Who the hell is that? Malik muttered. Elijah stopped beside me, close up that I could feel the warmth radiating from him, but not touching me, not crossing lines, not breaking boundaries, but claiming space in a way that made my pulse throb in my throat. Miss Carter, he said calmly, you were supposed to send your updated palette an hour ago. His voice was steady, almost cool, but something in it was different. Protective, intentional. Malik scoffed. So this is him? This the reason you don't want to talk? Elijah turned his head slowly, finally acknowledging Malik. His eyes hardened, the temperature in the air dropping. Are you interfering with my employee's ability to work? Malik stepped closer, puffing out his chest. This is none of your business. Elijah didn't blink. Everything that affects my designer's performance is my business. The authority in his voice wasn't loud. It wasn't aggressive. It was absolute. Malik swallowed. She's my fiancé, he spat. Not anymore, I said quietly. Malik's head snapped toward me, shock twisting his features. Elijah watched the exchange with a stillness that made my heart thud. Then he stepped a little closer, not toward Malik, but toward me, close enough to make me feel something dangerous stir in my chest. Miss Carter, he said softly but firmly, do you feel safe? Safe. Not protected. Not claimed. Safe. The question sliced straight through my pain. My breath shook. Yes, I whispered. Elijah nodded once. Then he turned to Malik, his voice lowering. Leave, now. Malik's nostrils flared. You can't tell me. Elijah stepped forward, just enough to make his dominance clear without laying a hand on him. I'm not telling you, he said quietly. I'm warning you. The silence that followed felt heavy enough to break concrete. Malik stared between us, between the man I used to love and the man who made the ground feel steadier beneath me just by standing near. Then Malik's face crumpled, not with remorse, but with realization. You chose him, he whispered. I shook my head. I chose myself. That was the final blow. Malik turned, walked to his car, and drove away without another word. The moment his headlights vanished, my strength left with them. I pressed a hand to my chest, breath trembling. Elijah turned to me, the hardness fading from his face, replaced by something softer, something deeper. He didn't touch me, didn't invade my space. He simply stood there, close enough that I felt held without being held. You shouldn't be dealing with this alone, he said quietly. My throat tightened. I'm okay. Elijah studied my face, slowly, carefully. You're lying, he murmured. The words unraveled something inside me. For the first time that day, warm tears filled my eyes. Not heartbreak tears, not Malik tears. Tears of exhaustion, of release, of being seen. I wiped them quickly, embarrassed, but Elijah didn't turn away. His voice softened even more. Do you want me to leave? The fact that he asked, that he gave me the choice, hit harder than any gesture. I shook my head before I could think. No, I whispered, not yet. He nodded once, accepting my answer without questioning it. Then he tilted his head slightly. Can you walk me through your revised palette? I blinked, surprised. Now? Here? He gave the faintest ghost of a smile. If you're not ready to talk about personal matters, then let's talk about work, something that belongs to you, something you control. The kindness beneath the professionalism made my breath catch. I walked with him toward the stairs to my apartment. Halfway up, I stumbled, not dramatically, just a tiny misstep, because my legs were shaking from everything that had happened. Elijah's hand shot out instinctively, steadying my elbow. The touch was brief, professional. but my heart reacted like he had poured warmth directly into my veins. Careful, he said softly. You've had a long day. I swallowed, unable to look at him. You don't have to stay. Elijah's voice lowered. I know. But he didn't leave. We reached my door. I unlocked it, stepping inside. He stayed in the doorway, eyes scanning the room like making sure it was safe. Then his gaze returned to me, steady, warm, deeply observant. Send your palette when you're ready, he said. Not before. I nodded slowly. He turned to leave, but paused, hand resting on the doorframe. Janelle? My heart stuttered. Yes? He didn't smile, didn't soften, but his voice warmed in a way that stole the air from my lungs. Don't let anyone from your past make you feel small again. A beat. Ever. Then he walked away, leaving me in the doorway with trembling hands, burning eyes, and a heart fighting a war between what broke me and what was beginning to wake me up again. The night of the Hartwell Client Gala arrived faster than I expected. One moment, I was forcing myself through long days of work and long nights of healing, and the next, I was standing in front of my closet staring at a row of clothes that suddenly felt too small for the woman I was becoming. This wasn't just a work event, it was the event. The kind where deals were struck behind champagne glasses, where reputations rose or fell, where presence mattered almost as much as talent. And for the first time since the heartbreak, I wanted to show up as the version of myself that Malik never saw. Strong, focused, unreachable. I slipped into a sleek black dress, simple, fitted, elegant. It hugged my waist and brushed my knees, with sleeves that made my shoulders look sharp and clean. I tied my hair into a high puff and applied my makeup slowly, blending strength into each line, each highlight. When I stepped back and looked at my reflection, it wasn't the girl who cried in her car at 3 a.m. staring back at me. It was someone new, someone I was still learning, someone who had cracked but didn't break. I whispered, "You deserve to be seen," then grabbed my keys and headed out. The gala was held on the rooftop of the Hartwell Tower, an open-air space surrounded by glass panels overlooking downtown Houston. Soft string lights glowed overhead, champagne-colored drapes fluttered in the warm night breeze, and live jazz floated through the air. Executives laughed near the bar, clients mingled near the heaters, and designers whispered behind their wine glasses while pretending not to stare at Elijah Knight as he made his rounds. He was impossible to miss. Tall, sharp, elegant in a charcoal suit that seemed to swallow the city lights. He wasn't smiling, but he didn't need to. He carried himself like a man who knew he didn't have to prove anything to anyone. Not tonight, not ever. I stepped onto the rooftop, nerves buzzing. The moment his gaze found me across the crowd, everything inside my chest shifted. He didn't hide the way he looked at me. He didn't rush. He didn't look away. He simply watched, slowly, deliberately, like he was acknowledging that I had arrived, that I belonged in the room. My breath caught. His eyes swept over me once, lingering just long enough to make something coil warm and low in my stomach. Then he nodded. Small, subtle, but enough to send a shiver down my spine. Before I could move toward him, a coworker, Daniel, a senior designer, stepped into my path. Wow, Janelle, he said with a smirk, giving an appreciative glance down my outfit. Didn't know you cleaned up this nice. I forced a polite smile. Thank you. He leaned closer, already too close. I'm just saying, if Knight doesn't put you on the big client, I definitely would. My stomach tightened with discomfort. Excuse me, I said firmly, but he caught my wrist lightly. Come on, don't act shy. My heart lurched with irritation until a shadow fell across us. Elijah stepped in between us like a wall, his presence sharp enough to slice the moment in half. His voice was controlled, quiet, and deadly. Is there a reason you're touching my designer? Daniel froze. His hand dropped instantly. Sir, I didn't mean, Elijah didn't blink. Leave. Daniel gulped and practically ran. The air around me felt charged. Elijah turned to me slowly, his eyes sweeping over my face, not hungry, not possessive, but searching. Are you all right? My breath shook. I'm fine, I managed. He studied me for a moment longer. Then his voice lowered. You look, he paused, choosing his words carefully. Strong. My heart flipped. Thank you, I whispered. He took a step closer. Not enough for anyone to gossip, but enough for me to feel his warmth. Enough that his cologne drifted around me, warm and clean and masculine. Walk with me, he said. It wasn't a request, but it wasn't a command either. It was an opening. I nodded. We walked toward the far end of the rooftop where the view opened to the full Houston skyline. Cars moved like rivers below. The towers glowed gold and silver in the night. The city pulsed with life. Elijah stood beside me, hands in his pockets, shoulders relaxed in a way I hadn't seen before. "How are you adjusting?" he asked quietly. The honesty in his tone surprised me. "It's been a lot," I admitted. "But work helps." He nodded softly. "I can tell." I looked up at him. "How?" He turned his head slightly. "Your eyes." My breath caught. "What about them?" He exhaled once, a slow, thoughtful breath. "They used to look sad. Now they look focused." Something warm flickered in my chest. "I'm trying," I whispered. Elijah's voice softened. "You're doing more than trying." The world felt quieter suddenly, softer, more intimate. The music faded, and the hum of conversation blurred into background noise. It was just us, standing too close, breathing the same air. For a moment, neither of us spoke. The silence wasn't uncomfortable, it was charged, full. Something shifted between us in that moment, something I felt but didn't dare name. Then Elijah spoke again, voice lower than before. "I need to ask you something important." I turned fully to him, heart skipping. "What is it?" He hesitated. Elijah Knight, the man who commanded rooms without blinking, hesitated. "Has anyone from your past shown up again?" My chest tightened. "Malik," I swallowed. "Yes," I whispered. Something darkened in Elijah's eyes. Not jealousy, not possessiveness, something protective. "Did he hurt you?" I shook my head. "He tried to talk. I didn't let him." Elijah nodded slowly. "Good." My breath hitched. His voice dropped even lower. "Because you don't deserve anyone who breaks you." Something inside me trembled. Before I could speak, he stepped closer, close enough that the city lights reflected in his eyes, close enough that I felt the heat of his body. My heartbeat thudded so loudly I thought he could hear it. His voice barely above a whisper. "If someone hurts you again." He paused. The intensity in his eyes made my knees weak. "I won't stay out of it." Time stopped. My lips parted slightly. Elijah, his gaze lowered for a fraction of a second to my mouth flicker, just enough to make my skin burn. And for the first time, I saw him lose control of his composure. Just a crack, a breath, a moment. Then, "Mr. Knight," a voice cut through the air. We turned sharply. A woman in a red dress approached with a too bright smile, one of the clients. Elijah straightened instantly, expression shifting back to professional. But before he turned fully away, he looked at me one last time. A look that said, "This isn't over." A look that reached straight into my chest. And then he walked toward the client, leaving me standing at the edge of the rooftop with shaking hands and a heart I could no longer pretend wasn't waking up. But the night wasn't done tilting. Not yet. My phone buzzed. A new message. Unknown number. Again. "He's not who you think he is." My stomach dropped. Another message followed. "Be careful around Elijah Knight." And just like that, everything shifted again. The message I received at the gala, "Be careful around Elijah Knight," echoed inside my mind for days, like a whisper I tried to ignore but couldn't silence. I blocked the unknown number, but the damage was already done. Fear crept inside my chest, soft and poisonous. Not fear of Elijah himself, but fear of what I was starting to feel for him. Fear of the pull I couldn't explain. Fear of how deeply my heart responded to his presence. After everything I had survived, catching my breath around another man terrified me. So I did the only thing I knew how to do when things became too real. I pulled away. I avoided his gaze in meetings. I stopped lingering in hallways. I kept my answers short, my tone professional, my steps fast whenever I sensed him getting close. But what hurt the most was how quickly Elijah noticed. His eyes would skim past me in the conference room with a controlled indifference that stung more than any sharp word. The softness I saw on the rooftop disappeared. He was professional, polished, untouchable, and the distance I had created wrapped around my chest like a cold metal band. The office felt different too. People sensed the shift between us. They whispered, they glanced. They avoided contacting me unless necessary, unsure where I stood with the most intimidating man in the company. Every time I caught Elijah's silhouette through glass conference doors, my heart tugged painfully. But I forced myself to look away. Every day, we drifted farther apart. Every day, my chest ached more for someone I told myself I shouldn't want. And then came the crisis, the kind that didn't care about emotional distance or broken hearts. The major client Elijah warned us about requested a full redesign after weeks of work, a total overhaul. Every floor layout, every lighting plan, every color scheme, all due in 2 days. Panic rippled through the design department like an electric shock. People scrambled, arguments erupted, designers revisited old files, frantically sketching, cursing under their breaths. Elijah held an emergency meeting, commanding the room with a presence that cut through chaos like a blade. But this time, he barely looked at me. Carter, he said, his voice cool, you're handling the conceptual framework. My breath hitched. Yes, sir. You'll work with me directly, he added. My office, tonight. My heart lurched in my chest, working with him again, alone after avoiding him all week. I nodded quickly, keeping my face composed. Understood. When the meeting ended, I tried to slip out, but Elijah's voice stopped me sharp and clean. Janelle. I froze. Slowly I turned. His gaze held mine for the first time in days, and it hurt, not because of hostility, but because his eyes were unreadable, guarded in a way that told me I had pushed him farther than I realized. We don't have room for hesitation, he said quietly. Not tonight. I swallowed hard. I won't hesitate. Something flickered in his expression, something like disappointment mixed with relief, but it vanished before I could decipher it. Good, he said simply. 6 p.m., 6 p.m. came too quickly. I walked into his office, heart hammering, palms sweaty, nerves buzzing. The skyline burned orange and gold behind him as the sun set. He didn't look up when I entered, just pointed toward the table where design boards were spread out like open wounds. Sit, he said. I obeyed. We worked in tense silence. Hours passed. Sketches piled. Ideas shifted. My pencil scratched across the paper with frantic urgency. Elijah moved around the room like a storm contained within a tailored suit. Controlled, intense, impossible to ignore. Every so often, he would stand behind me, correcting a line, adjusting a color, guiding my hand with a presence that made my breath stutter. Not because he touched me, he didn't, but because he almost did. And almost was enough to set my entire body on fire. At one point, he leaned over me to examine the lighting draft. His breath brushed the side of my neck. My fingers trembled, he noticed. His jaw tightened. He stepped back abruptly, pacing to the other side of the room. The emotional distance between us felt like an invisible wall we kept slamming into. Hours later, close to midnight, the tension boiled over. I made a tiny mistake, barely noticeable, but enough for him to stop dead in his tracks. You're distracted, he said sharply. I'm not, I insisted, though my voice betrayed me. He exhaled hard, dragging a hand across his jaw. You've been distracted for days. Shame pricked my chest. I'm doing my job. No, he said, turning toward me fully. You're hiding. The truth hit me so hard I felt it in my bones. I stared at him, breath shallow. I'm not hiding. He stepped closer, slowly, deliberately, like approaching a wounded animal that might bolt. Then look at me, he said. I froze. My throat tightened. He was too close, too intense, too much. Elijah, I whispered. His eyes softened, just barely. Please, he murmured. Look at me. With a shaky breath, I lifted my gaze, and the moment our eyes met, all the distance I'd created shattered. I felt everything. Every moment on the rooftop, every heartbeat in the hallway, every unspoken connection between us. It was all there, thick and undeniable. Elijah inhaled slowly, as if bracing himself. Why did you pull away? He asked quietly. My lips parted, but no sound came out. How could I tell him the truth? That I was afraid of wanting him? That I was terrified of falling again? That the pain Malik left behind was still stitching itself together inside me? He took another step closer, his voice barely a whisper now. Did I cross a boundary? My heart lurched. No, I breathed. Never. His jaw tightened with something like relief. Then why are you avoiding me? My eyes burned. Because, I whispered, voice trembling. Because I don't know what this is. I don't know what's happening. I don't know how to trust myself anymore. The confession cracked something in me. Elijah's expression changed, softened, deepened. He stepped so close I felt the warmth of his chest. Janelle, he said gently, I would never hurt you. My breath trembled. How do you know that? His eyes darkened. Because I know what it feels like to be broken, and I refuse to break someone who's still learning to breathe. The room went silent, thick, charged. My heart hammered against my ribs. Then, a sudden knock rattled the office door. We both jumped. Before Elijah could speak, the door swung open. Daniel, the same designer Elijah confronted at the gala, stood there, face pale, breath rapid. Elijah, he gasped, eyes darting between us. You need to see this, now. Elijah's entire stance shifted, sharp, alert, dangerous. What is it? He demanded. Daniel swallowed. It's about Malik and Tasha. My stomach dropped. And it's about you, Janelle. My blood ran cold. Daniel handed Elijah a tablet. Elijah's eyes narrowed as he read. His jaw clenched, hard. His voice dropped in something dark and lethal. Janelle, you're not safe. Elijah didn't move for a full second after reading whatever flashed across Daniel's screen. His eyes sharpened, his jaw flexed, and that calm, controlled presence he carried like armor tightened into something lethal. Daniel, he said quietly, leave the room. Daniel nodded immediately and rushed out, closing the door behind him. Elijah set the tablet down on the table with a slow, deliberate precision that made my stomach twist. Janelle, he said, voice low, sit. My pulse hammered. What happened? He didn't raise his voice. He didn't panic. He simply stepped closer, lowering himself so he was eye level with me. Someone sent an anonymous report to HR. A complaint. My breath caught painfully. About me? His eyes flickered with something sharp. About us. My heart dropped. Ice filled my veins. What kind of complaint? I whispered. He held my gaze. That I'm taking advantage of you. The words felt like a blow to the chest. What? That's not true. My voice cracked. Elijah held up a hand, calm, steady, protective. I know that, he said, but the report included screenshots, photos, messages. My stomach churned. From who? His voice hardened. Malik. I froze. Elijah continued. And Tasha backed it. Together, they claimed you're emotionally unstable because of your failed relationship and that I'm exploiting that vulnerability. My throat constricted. Why would they? Elijah's jaw tightened. Because you walked away. People who lose control of you will try to destroy you on your way out. My vision blurred with furious, humiliated tears. They want to ruin my job. Elijah nodded once. And me. A shaky inhale left my lips. This is because of me. Elijah leaned in, closer than he ever had before. Look at me. I did. His voice dropped to a whisper. This is not your fault. He stood suddenly, pacing once across the office like a caged storm. They're reckless, he muttered. Emotional, and now they're cornered. That makes them dangerous. I swallowed hard. Dangerous how? He met my gaze again. The kind of people who lie to keep their pride intact are capable of anything. A shiver crawled up my spine. What do we do? Elijah's answer was immediate. We confronted head on, together. Before I could respond, his phone vibrated in his pocket. He glanced at the screen, and his expression darkened even more. They're outside, he said. My heart lurched. Outside where? He stepped closer, lowering his voice. This building. My chest tightened. Elijah? Stay here. He turned to walk out, but I grabbed his sleeve without thinking. Don't go alone. He paused, his eyes dropping to my hand on his arm. For a moment, just a moment, his expression softened into something warm and dangerous. I'm not leaving you, he said quietly. My fingers slipped away, but the connection lingered in the air. Elijah walked to the door, and this time I followed. When we reached the lobby, I saw them immediately. Malik and Tasha standing by the front desk. Malik's face was tight with anger. Tasha looked pale and jittery, her eyes darting around like she expected a fight. The receptionist stared at them uncomfortably, unsure what was happening. Tasha spotted me first. Her lips parted. Janelle? I warned. My voice was sharper than I expected. Malik stepped forward. We need to talk. Elijah positioned himself subtly in front of me, not touching me, not blocking me, but making it clear I wasn't alone. You already said everything, I said. No, Malik snapped. You didn't hear my side. I let out a laugh that held no humor. I don't need your side. I saw it. Malik's jaw clenched. Tasha stepped forward, tears already spilling. Please, please just listen. No, Elijah said suddenly, voice deep and cold. She doesn't owe either of you anything. The lobby froze. Malik turned sharply. And who the hell are you to speak for her? Elijah didn't blink. Her employer, the man you tried to accuse falsely, and the man who won't tolerate you harassing her ever again. The word harassing made heat flood my face. Malik scoffed. Wow, so you're really letting him talk for you now? I stepped forward before Elijah could speak. I'm letting myself talk, I said firmly. And I'm telling you, both of you, I'm done. Tasha burst into sobs. Janelle, please, please don't end it like this. I made a mistake. You made dozens, I said softly, and you enjoyed every one. Malik's voice turned sharp. So what? You're just going to run to him now? He pointed at Elijah. Elijah's presence shifted dangerously. I stepped forward, cutting off whatever storm Elijah was about to unleash. I'm not running to anyone, I said. I'm choosing peace. Malik's face crumpled. So this is it? This is it, I whispered. For the first time since the betrayal, I felt something inside me loosen, untangle, heal. Malik looked away, jaw trembling. Tasha collapsed into quiet sobs. And I felt free. Then Elijah gently touched my elbow, barely a whisper of contact. Miss Carter, he said softly, come upstairs. I nodded. We walked toward the elevators as Malik's voice broke behind us. Janelle, please. I didn't look back. When the elevator doors closed, silence fell between us. Thick, charged, intimate. Elijah stood inches away, his breath steady, his shoulders tense, his jaw clenched like he was holding something in. Then Janelle, he murmured, voice low, raw. I looked up. His eyes were darker than I'd ever seen them. He exhaled once slowly. I need you to understand something. My heart pounded. What? This distance between us. He shook his head slightly. I can't do it anymore. My breath caught. He stepped closer, not touching me, but close enough to steal my air. Every time you pull away, he said quietly, it feels like I'm losing something I never should have wanted in the first place. My pulse throbbed in my throat. Elijah, and the worst part, he whispered. His voice shook. I don't want to stop wanting it. The elevator chimed. The door slid open. He didn't move. Neither did I. Then a voice interrupted everything. Mr. Knight? We both turned. Daniel stood there, wide-eyed, breathless, panicked. They're not leaving, he said. Malik and Tasha. He swallowed hard. They're demanding to go upstairs. Elijah's eyes hardened into steel. He stepped in front of me. Then this ends tonight, he said. When Elijah said, this ends tonight, something in the room shifted, like the air itself thickened around his words. He stepped out of the elevator with a purpose that made even the fluorescent lights feel like they dimmed to watch him. I followed him down the hallway, my pulse hammering in my ears. We reached the lobby again, and the tension hit me like a wall. Malik and Tasha were still there, arguing with security, their voices sharp and frantic. Tasha spotted me first. Janelle, please, she cried, mascara streaking down her cheeks. Malik turned too, desperation twisting his features. We just want to talk. Elijah stepped forward, his posture tall and commanding. No, he said coldly. You want control. There's a difference. Malik's nostrils flared. Stay out of this. Elijah didn't blink. You tried to drag my name into your lies. That makes it my business. He stood between me and them, his presence so still and powerful that even Malik hesitated. You filed a false accusation, Elijah continued, which HR has already flagged as fraudulent. Tasha sobbed harder. Malik's face went pale. Elijah stepped forward, voice low and dangerous. If either of you contacts her again, if you call, text, show up, breathe in her direction, I will have restraining orders filed, and I will pursue legal action for defamation. Malik's face twisted. You can't. Try me, Elijah said. The lobby froze. Elijah turned to security. Escort them out. Guards stepped forward. Malik suddenly panicked. Wait, Janelle, please, you can't let him do this. I loved you. His voice cracked on the word loved. My heart didn't. I stepped forward, not behind Elijah, not beside him, but in front of him, on my own 2 feet. You don't get to say you love me, I said quietly. Malik blinked, stunned. My voice didn't shake. It didn't waver. It came from the part of me that had healed through fire. You broke me, I said, and she helped you do it. That's not love. Tasha's sobs grew harder. Malik reached a trembling hand toward me. I'm begging you. Begging doesn't undo betrayal, I whispered. Goodbye, Malik. His emotional collapse was the final thing I needed to let go of the weight tied to my ankles for so long. Security escorted them out. For the first time, as the doors shut behind them, I felt air return to my lungs. Silence filled the lobby once they were gone. Heavy, clean, final. I turned to Elijah slowly. His posture softened when our eyes met, just slightly, just enough that I felt it deep inside my chest. Are you all right? He asked softly. No dominance, no coldness, just concern. Real concern. I nodded, even though my knees trembled. Yes, I whispered. I think I'm finally all right. Elijah studied my face, his eyes moving over every emotion flickering through me. You handled yourself well. I swallowed. Because you were here. His expression shifted, just a fraction, but it was enough. enough to tell me something inside him was changing too. He gestured toward the hallway. Come upstairs. You need a moment. I followed him into the elevator again, but this time the silence didn't feel like tension. It felt like space, space to breathe, space to exist, space to be whatever I was becoming. When we reached his office, he closed the door gently behind us. The city lights glowed through the massive windows like 1,000 quiet witnesses. I walked toward them, staring at the skyline that had held so many of my tears. I thought I'd feel empty, I whispered, losing them. Elijah stepped beside me, not touching me, but close, respectfully close. You didn't lose them, he said quietly. You released them. A breath shuddered out of me. It hurts, he nodded. Healing does. I looked up at him. This man who had walked into my life like a storm, then somehow became the calm after it. Why do you care so much? I asked softly. For the first time since I met him. Elijah seemed unsure of what to say. His jaw tightened, his eyes softened, and something vulnerable flickered across his expression. Because, he said slowly, you walked into my company on your first day with pain in your eyes, and still did your job with more focus than people who've never been broken. My breath caught. He continued, voice quiet but intense. Because I saw strength in you before you saw it in yourself. My throat tightened. Elijah. He took a slow breath. And somewhere along the way, I started caring more than I should have. The world seemed to pause. My heart thumped painfully in my chest. More than you should, I whispered. He nodded once. I'm your boss, Janelle. There are lines that should never blur. I stepped closer, for the first time not out of fear, but out of clarity. So why does it feel like they have? He inhaled sharply. Because they have. His admission cracked something open inside me. I exhaled shakily. And now what? He stared at me, eyes deep, conflicted, wanting. Now, he said slowly, we decide whether those lines are protecting us or holding us back. The air between us pulsed with something magnetic, something that felt like fate tightening its grip. I spoke before fear could choke me. I don't want to be afraid anymore. Elijah's eyes lowered to my lips for a heartbeat before meeting my gaze again. Then don't be. Warmth hit my cheeks. Don't run, he added softly. Not from me. My heart twisted with a truth I could no longer silence. I'm not running, I whispered. Not anymore. Elijah stepped closer, so close the heat of him wrapped around me like a promise. Janelle, he murmured, tell me what you want. No man had ever asked me that. Not Malik. Not anyone. My breath trembled. I want peace, I said softly. I want safety. I want someone who doesn't make me feel small, someone who doesn't lie, someone who sees me. Elijah's voice dropped to a whisper. I see you. My chest tightened, and I hesitated. His eyes urged me forward. And I want to know what this is between us. Elijah's jaw flexed, emotion tightening his features. Then come here, he whispered. I stepped into him slowly, deliberately, until we stood inches apart. He didn't grab me, didn't rush, didn't pull. He simply lifted a hand and brushed his fingers gently along my cheek, light as a breath. My eyes fluttered shut. Is this okay? He asked softly. My voice trembled. Yes. His forehead rested gently against mine. Then let me be good to you, he whispered. No lies, no betrayal, no confusion. My heart cracked open wider. Just honesty, I inhaled. Just us. And then finally he kissed me. Soft, slow, careful, like he was afraid I might break, like he wanted to piece me back together with every breath. His hands cupped my jaw tenderly, and mine rose to his chest where his heartbeat thudded strong and steady under my palm. In that moment, everything else faded. Malik, Tasha, the pain, the betrayal. All of it dissolved into the background as something new rooted itself inside me. When he pulled back, his eyes searched mine. If we do this, he whispered, I won't let you disappear when things get hard. Good, I said, breathless, because I'm not going anywhere. He smiled, barely, but enough to make my chest bloom with warmth. Then stay, he murmured. Stay with me. I nodded, tears filling my eyes, not from sadness, but from something I hadn't felt in a long time. Belonging. He wrapped his arms around me carefully, and I let myself sink into his warmth, into something that felt like healing shaped into human form. When I eventually pulled back, I wiped my eyes and laughed softly. I never thought my story would end like this. Elijah tilted his head. It's not ending, he said. It's beginning. I breathed out slowly, letting the truth settle deep into me. And he was right. My story wasn't about Malik, or betrayal, or heartbreak. It was about rediscovering myself in the ashes. It was about choosing peace, choosing growth, choosing love that didn't need to be begged for. As the city lights shimmered around us, Elijah took my hand and held it firmly, confidently, like someone who planned to stay. I squeezed back. A new chapter, a new life, a new love. And after everything I had survived, I finally felt ready. And that was my story. If you stayed with me to the very end, thank you. Thank you for listening. Thank you for feeling it with me. Life has a way of breaking you and then surprising you with the kind of healing you never saw coming. I lost people I thought I'd have forever. I walked through betrayal, pain, confusion, and nights that felt too heavy to survive. But on the other side of all of it, I found myself. I found peace. I found a new beginning I didn't know I deserved. If this story touched something in your heart, if it reminded you of your strength, your worth, your voice, drop a comment and tell me where in the world you're watching from. Your words matter more than you know. And if you want more stories like this, raw, emotional, powerful, full of healing, heartbreak, and hope, hit that like button, subscribe, and turn on your notifications so you never miss the next story I tell. Until we meet again, stay strong, stay human, and never apologize for choosing peace over people who tried to break you.